So, as always, we begin with our auspicious invocation. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Namasanghaya, Namo Gurubhyaha. And I will share the screen so you can read along with the Manjushri invocation. Manjughosham namasyami yat prasadan matishubhem kalyana mitram vandeham yat prasadat vardhate. A reminder once more about all the cases that you already know in this verse. Manjughosham, the accusative, is the object of namasyami, which means I bow or I pay homage. Yat prasadat is the ablative, by whose grace, mati, the mind or the mental state. This is in the nominative, shubhe in the locative, in the auspicious or on the auspicious. And then kalyana mitram, again, accusative being the object of vande, to salute or to venerate. And then aham, the nominative, yat prasadat is the repetition of the previous, cha vardhate, it grows or expands. And I found a wonderful verse by Atisha Dipankara, who, as some of you know, played an extremely important role in the transmission of the Buddha Dharma to Tibet. He's seen today by Tibetans as the founder of the Kadampa tradition, so especially for the Gelugpas of extreme importance, but for everybody in Tibet. The 21 Dara tradition mainly derives from him, and so on. So he says this, Abhijasya diva ratro yani punyani santi vai abhijayashchara hitye naiva janmashateshu cha. That the merits accumulated in one day and night by a person who has understanding are not gained in the absence of understanding, even in 100 lifetimes. So it's a fantastic verse because it shows us that the ancient masters were not fans of simply repeating mantras without understanding, of simply engaging in practices without understanding. So what we are doing here as part of this little course is to increase abhijna, meaning understanding. And therefore, this, according to Atisha, actually increases the power of punya, of merit. So last time, I went into a long discourse on explaining the word sukha and dukkha. Today, let us do it a little bit the other way around. First, let us do some grammar, and then I can go into some explanatory flights. You will remember that we covered the present tense of verbs already. And the usual example we use for verbs is that of gacchati, but one can also use vadati or bhavati. Gacchati is a good one for the present tense because we know it from Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. I go for refuge to the Buddha. So the way we practice the present tense is gacchati, gacchataha, gacchanti, gacchasi, gacchataha, gacchata, gacchami, gacchava, gacchama. We begin, I already mentioned this the last time or the time before, we begin with the third person, meaning the other, and then slowly come to the first person, following the structure of first the singular, then the dual, and then the plural. A reminder, we have a dual in Sanskrit because it is actually quite intuitive that language occurs in dialogue. It occurs in exchange. It is quite rare, in fact, that one speaks in one voice as many people, as a group of people. It is more common to speak with amongst two people. So for Sanskritists or for Sanskrit speakers or users of the past, it would seem very strange that modern languages have lost the dual, such an important form, and have jumped either from a singular or then directly to a plural. So if you think of it like that, it becomes much more logical, yeah, that you learn the dual also. So today I want to show you the future tense and also the past tense. Don't feel overwhelmed. The future tense, you will see, is extremely easy to learn if you already know the present tense, because the endings are exactly the same. I'm just marking them here for you. The endings of the present tense are repeated in the future tense with the addition of a little insertion known as the ishya. So the ti remains the same, the taha remains the same, the anti remains the same. Simply we add ishya in between. So instead of vadati, vadataha, vadanti, we now have vadishyati, vadishyataha, vadishyanti. Very easy to learn. My son, our younger son, he learned it in seconds because he already knew the present tense. So of course that's easy. Yeah. And a reminder, this never changes. Yeah, this is always the same. And I'll show you an actual use of that. So I'm just marking the endings here that you can see. So an actual use in a verse that you might have read. This is the introductory verse of the very well-known Bodhisattva Charyavatara, the manifestation of the conduct of the Bodhisattvas, composed by Shantideva. So he says, Kathayishyami, I shall narrate. Kathayati would be the present tense, or in this case, it would be kathayami. The same ending, kathayami, I shall narrate, but he says kathayishyami, which is the plural form. Sorry, the future form. I haven't had enough coffee today yet, so excuse my language slips. So to show you again, here, gacchami in the present tense, or vadami, it would be if we take the word vadati, to speak, or kathayami, to narrate in the present tense, and then in the future it becomes vadishyami or kathayishyami, which you have now seen in the verse here, kathayishyami. So what is he going to narrate? He says, I shall narrate the avatara. Avatara is like the descent or the manifestation or the expression of what? Of the samvara, means the conduct, of the atmajas, the self-born, meaning the children, of the sugatas, of the Buddhas. So this is simply a synonym of Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Here. But don't worry, we'll go back to this verse in a moment. Don't feel overwhelmed. I'm always worried that students feel overwhelmed when they see these verses. What I wanted to show you was the use of the future tense by Shantideva, Kathayishyami. Right? So present tense, future tense. And then very simple, the past tense. We call this a narrative past or indistinct past. Sometimes they call it an imperative in English. These are all kinds of Western usages. It is best probably just called the past tense. And here, a short a is added before the root, and the endings slightly change. So this is no longer gacchati. This is now just agachat. Agachatam, agachan. Agacha, agachatam, agachata. Agacham, agachava, agachama. Here, I haven't given you an example from actual Buddhist texts, but very common in the Mahayana Sutras is avochat. Thus he said. Avochat. Thus he said or he spoke. And you will find many more, we will find many more together when we go through texts eventually, which is really the goal of what we are doing here, is I want to give you a little bit of a framework so that you can then go through, or we can then together go through texts. Yeah, so that it becomes easy for you to recognize and to feel confidence in your understanding. So to summarize, you now know the present tense, the future tense, and the past tense of most verbs, not all, but of most verbs. Let me take you to our vocabulary list. Here we have anubhavati, or bhavati, or dadati, or gacchati, or hasati. Let us take the example of hasati. Hasati means to laugh. And now we open, I'm not good with the technology side, but we open this here, the past tense, and I'll help you for the first time. If gacchati becomes agachat, then hasati becomes ahasat. Can I ask one of you, if gacchati in the past tense first person, meaning I went, becomes agacham, how would you say I laughed? I'll give you the, I don't know what happened here, but I'll give you the verb hasati. So if gacchati becomes agacham in the first person, meaning I went, what would hasati become in that? How would I say I laughed? Would anyone like to try?
Ahasam.
Ahasam, exactly. And we laughed in the plural would be, would someone like to try?
Ahasama.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's perfectly logical. To prove that point, that it is perfectly logical and systematic, let us take also kadati. Yeah, to eat. How would I say you ate? So that would be second person. Yeah. You ate to one person.
Akadaha.
Exactly. Akadaha. Yeah. So it's very straightforward, very clear. The same with the future tense. Let me transport these two to the future tense. So you can see the same here. if I want to say, they will laugh. Sie werden lachen in German. They will laugh. So if vadati becomes vadishyanti, vadishyanti. Here I've just separated for your convenience. If vadati becomes vadishyanti, then hasati would be
Hasishyanti.
exactly. Sounds a bit strange, right? Hasishyanti, but yes, exactly. That's what it is. And kadishyanti, exactly the same. Kadishyamaha, kadishyavaha, and so on and so forth. So now if I were my teacher of ancient times, means of 30 years ago, it's a big number to say 30 years ago, but that's what it was 30 years ago. I would now take you through endless texts where we would just be identifying, there is a past tense. There's a future tense. There is a present tense. But I won't be that mean, and because that can make it very boring. So I wanted to give you this as a very clear example of the three tenses. And it would be valuable if you start learning these by heart, as I mentioned last time also, especially if you have these three tenses, the present tense, the future tense, and the past tense. That is really quite powerful. And the future tense, since it has the same endings as the present tense, is actually very easy. It's just ishya in between. So it's really easy. You're basically just learning the present tense, actually. And then the past tense. That would be quite powerful because you cover so much, something like 50% of all texts already. You are covering with that. Let me take a little excursion with you. This is now not planned. I just want to, so maybe this goes wrong. In German, this is called the Vorführeffekt, right? So Vorführeffekt means if you want to do something that's not planned and then it goes wrong. It's also called Murphy's Law. But here, can I ask, can any one of you, I know this, if you haven't learned any Sanskrit yet, I know this looks like, oh my goodness, right? It's not about it's not about recognizing the meaning here. This is sometimes a bit frustrating for people. What I'm asking you is, can you recognize a verb? There are 3 verses here. For your benefit, I will recite them. Bhavadukkashatani tartukamai, api sattva-vyasanani hartukamai. बहुसौख्यशतानि भोक्तुकामी न विमोच्यं हि सदैव बोधिचित्तम् भवचारकबन्धनो वराकः सुगतानां सुत उच्यते क्षणेन सनरामरलोकवन्दनीयो भवति स्मोदित एव बोधिचित्ते अशुचि प्रतिमामिमां गृहीत्वा जिनरत्न प्रतिमां karoti. I'm helping you here. Karoti anargham rajasata what is it? Rajajatamativa vedhaniyam sudridham grihnata bodhichitta sanjam. Can anyone recognize? There are 2 verbs. One of them I just told you, karoti. Can you find the other one? There's a verb here that is either in the present tense, in the past tense, or in the future tense. Maybe I should narrow it down to 1 verse.
No.
Sorry?
Now it's gone. I thought in the second line, but now I cannot see it.
Now it's gone because I removed the first verse. No, there is no verb there.
Okay.
No. So if you have the yes, bhavati, exactly. Who said that?
Me.
Me. That's always the
Shreya.
best answer.
Shreya.
Yes. Great. Exactly. Bhavati. Right? There you go. So this is the 9th verse of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Shantideva, and there you go. Bhavati. Right? And then I'll open the screen a little bit again. So we won't do this for too long, but you see, my teacher would have been brutal, right? It would have been hours and hours of just going through the verses without understanding the verses, but just finding the verbs. So now, look at this one here. Let me take you back to what we learned today. The future tense. Yeah, here we have the future tense. And kasya matuh piturvapi hitam shasseyamidrishim devatanam rishinam va brahmanam va bhavishyati. Bhavishyati.
Yes, Bhavishyati.
Yeah.
Last one.
So that bhavati means to be, bhavishyati means will be. Yeah, so it gives you some confidence. Now we could do the same with the cases. Yeah, we could say, you already know the cases of Devatanam, you know the case of Rishinam, you know the case of Brahmanam, but at the moment, let us just look a little bit more for some verbs. You also know Jagadananda Bijasya, the case, you know that already. Jagat Dukkaushadhasya cha. Again, asya, you know the case. This is all 6-1. This is the genitive case. Chittaratnasya yat punyam. Again, Chittaratnasya, you know the case. But that's not what we're focusing on. We're trying to see whether we can find some verbs. Now here, the problem is something has taken place that we're going to learn in about 2 minutes. This is known as sandhi. Sandhi means that when two vowels or two consonants also come together, then a little change happens. I'm going to explain that in a moment. Here there is a verb nashayati. This is actually ti at the end. Nashayati. It means it destroys or it removes. Here you find another verb that you have already have in your list. Iti satrapato jinasya putre kalusham sve hridaye karoti yascha kalushodaya sankhya sakalpan narakeshva vasatiti natha aha. There's actually 2 verbs there, but 3 verbs, but 2 of them you know, but 1 of them you definitely know. Go to your
I suggest karoti, but I'm not sure.
Karoti, exactly. Right? See, you have, where is it? Karoti. Here it is, karoti. See, in your verb list, karoti. She or he does or makes. Karoti. And then in your verb list, you also have vasati. She or he, it dwells and lives. Narakeshu vasati iti nata aha. And it's almost tempting for me to go through this verse and show you how many cases you know already. Shall we just do that for a second? Maybe not the whole verse, but just a few cases at least. Would someone like to try?
Okay, I take the easiest one. Hridaye is the locative.
Exactly. And what does it mean?
Within the heart.
Within the heart. Right? And then you would also know putre. That means, maybe you don't know the word putra, but putre is also the locative. Jinasya.
No.
Sorry? Marco, I think we didn't hear you.
Sorry. I was answering my wife.
Okay. Jinasya.
Genitive of
Genitive.
Gina, victorious.
Exactly. Jina is the victorious one, referring to a Buddha. And then maybe one more, kalpan.
Is accusative plural.
Exactly.
Of kalpa.
Of kalpa.
Age.
An eon, an age, right? A very long age. Excellent. Yeah. So I hope this all gives you some. And then iti, you also learned already. If we go to our verb list, our vocabulary list,
Yeah,
we had iti here. Look,
that's
under indeclinables, iti. Thus, a particle placed at the end of a statement or quotation to indicate that the preceding words are exactly as spoken or written. Yeah. It can also be, maybe here we could also say a particle used at the end of a chapter to conclude the summary, right? So that is what is happening here. It is not just at the end of a chapter, or we can say at the end of we should say at the end of a section, actually. That is more precise, to conclude a summary. So we're not going into the meanings, but I hope it gives you confidence to see after these few lessons how many things you already know. So now let us come to what we call sandhi. Sandhi is extremely important in Sanskrit studies. And some people have said, one of my Sanskrit students once said that sandhi is really for him was a threshold to enter Sanskrit. It was, and a threshold can sometimes be easy or it can be not so easy. And that is true. I have often seen that Sanskrit learners get a little bit uneasy when sandhi starts to come in. But we cannot do without sandhi. We have to learn sandhi. Sandhi, the word just means coming together. Parasannikarsha samhita is Panini's definition of it. It just means the closest approximation of two sounds is known as sandhi. Parasannikarsha, the closest coming together. And interestingly, this is especially relevant for us as Dzogchen practitioners. The Sanskrit word for Dzogchen is Mahasanti, the great coming together. And you will remember from last time the long exposition of the word Maha. Maha is related to the root Mah, Mahyate iti Maha, that which is worshipful. that which is truly worthy of worship. So Mahasandhi Dzogchen means the great coming together, or that coming together which is worthy of worship. And what is that coming together there in the context of Dzogchen? It is the coming together of samsara and nirvana. The closest coming together, ultimately seeing them as one. But here in the context of grammar, of course, it is not that romantic. It is, and please don't get a shock now when you see this, it is the coming together of vowels, consonants, and also visarga. But we begin with vowels. Please don't have a heart attack here. This is not a chart showing you some mathematical formula. It is actually a really good chart showing you that when a word ending in a is followed by a word beginning with a, the two a's become a. Example. Sorry, here. This is a wrong. Yes, here. Example. Maya ends in an a, is followed by a word beginning with a, and therefore the two a's become one a. Maya and asti becomes mayasti. Similarly, amita and abha becomes amitabha. So the a and the a become a. We go back to the chart, so you can learn to read the chart. Amita, followed by abha, becomes amitabha. Yeah, it's very, very straightforward. Yeah, it's not mathematics, or you can say it is mathematics, but very logical and simple. Similarly, we have a word ending with an a, followed by a word beginning with an I, and the result is E. So, Maya followed by iti is Mayeti. I'll show you again the chart. Maya followed by iti becomes Mayeti. Yeah, very simple and straightforward. Can I ask you to think of a Sanskrit word ending with an a, and to think of a Sanskrit word beginning with an I or an E yourself? Can you think of, maybe not all of you have sufficient Sanskrit vocabulary already, but you could try. Think of Isha or Ishvara, the Lord. Amita, and then Ishvara becomes Amit, or Isha becomes Amitesha. Similarly, Yoga, and then Isha becomes Yogesha.
One question, short
Yes.
question. In this case, I bring two words together to one. Is that
Yes.
a new meaning?
It depends. So you see, this is mostly sandhi between vowels mostly occurs in compounds, but in this case also with the verb. So maya asti is not a compound. This means maya is. So it is not really that something changes because of the sandhi. It's not that the meaning changes because of the sandhi. Not really. So it's not the sandhi that is causing the change in, is causing any change in meaning. We also have sandhi in English. I'll give you the very well-known example of that. In English, we don't say a hour. We say an hour. We don't say a Indian, right? We say an Indian. Why? For those who learn English newly, this is confusing. This seems to make it so much more complicated. But actually, the purpose of this sandhi here is to make it easier to pronounce. If you watch carefully, it is much easier to say an hour, an Indian, than to say a Indian, a Indian. It's like a hiatus. Hiatus means like there's like a break. If you say a Indian, it's like a break there. It's much easier to say an Indian, an hour. Similarly, sandhi makes it easier to pronounce words. Instead of saying maya asti amita abha, it becomes very fluid to say maya asti amita abha. And then there's even a sandhi between the I and the A. So let's take this forward and let us see if you yourself would be able to make the full sandhi of four words coming together. Here is the chart. Maya asti. This is difficult now here with the Zoom. How can we bring the two next to each other? So I have to insert a text box. Yes. This will help. So now what do? We think of Maya asti. That's pretty straightforward. We just had it. But would someone like to give the solution?
It's the A, außen.
Right. So the two become A. But now we have an I followed by an A. Right? So what do we do now? Very simple.
Yes. Team. Yes, team.
So remember, the final is the I.
Okay.
And the initial is the A.
Yes. Mayas. Tia.
Yes. So both this and this together become this. Yeah. So now we write ya. Yeah. And then we have the last one, a, and a is again just a. Yeah. Now you have done the full sandhi. Maya styamita bha. Now, of course, I'm going to state the obvious. Sandhi goes both ways, not only to make the sandhi, but also to unmake the sandhi. So you all know now that this came from Maya, Asti, and Amita and Abha, right? You knew all that. By the way, this sentence makes no sense. It means Amitabha is illusion, right? So that's not a nice thing to say. maybe we should add a na there. So Amitabha is not illusion, so as to be fair. Otherwise, the Dharma protectors will hit me on the head. But anyway, you got the point, right? So you have now made the Sandhi. But when you read Sanskrit texts, you need to unmake the Sandhi in order to understand the text. And that's often the challenge. And I will show you now.
Oh, yeah.
This is now the first verse of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Let me see if I can if I can paste this into here in a slightly short, smaller version. Ah, this works. Very nice. Good. So we have Sugatan. Doesn't seem to be a Sandhi. Why? Because it's which case? Like Kalpan, Marco said before, is the accusative plural. Yeah, he said before. Sasutan is also just the accusative. Dharmakayan is also just the accusative. But now it gets juicy. Pranipatyadarato kilam shchavandyan. So here, pranipatya adarato. And then adarato, you see here's the O with the little mark. This is, if we undo the Sandhi, this is actually adarato and then akhilamscha. And now here, this is the one I told you before already. This is where it becomes the most clear. Sugatatmaja. Now I want to ask you, Sugatatmaja, what is the Sandhi here?
Sugata and Atma.
Excellent. Right? So Sugata. And then we have Atmaja. And then there is another Sandhi here. Samvaravattaram. Someone else? This was the result.
Savara and Avataram.
Exactly. Samvara and Avataram. Wonderful. Yeah. And then there is one more Sandhi. Yatha Gamam.
Yata Agamam.
Yes. Yeah. So it is Yatha and Agamam. So now we have undone the Sandhis. We have opened the Sandhis. We have decoded the Sandhis. Sugatan, Sasutan, Sadharmakayan. Pranipatya adarato. Adarato is actually adarata, but we won't get there yet. Pranipatya adarato akhilamscha vandyan sugata atmaja samvara avataram kathayishyami yatha agamam samasat. Do you see now why Sandhi is actually really useful? Because to pronounce Sugata Atmaja Samvara Avataram is really not so fluent. It's not so fluid. Instead, saying Sugata Atmaja Samvara Avataram flows much more nicely. Is it clear why we have Sandhi in Sanskrit and how useful it actually is? So, and what is he saying here? He says, having bowed, pranipatti also has sometimes the sense of refuge, not just bowing, but really deeply taking refuge in something. Flying towards pranipatya. Patati means to fly, and pranipatya, prani, like going towards, deeply flying, like in the sense of really like a bird flying, but taking refuge to whom? Sugatan, to the Buddhas, Sasutan, along with their children, Sadharmakayan, along with their Dharmakayas. Akilam. This is a sandhi that you don't know yet. This is also actually just Akilan. All Vandyan, who are worthy of worship. And Adarato is actually Adaratah. With respect, taking refuge with respect to all worshipful Buddhas, along with their children and the Dharmakayas, I shall narrate. Gata yishyami, future tense. Yeah, you learned that today. I shall say, I shall narrate. Samasat. Samasa here means briefly, or in essence, according to the essence, or according to the compounded summary. So like really only what is important. Yatha agamam, according to the scriptures. This is an adverbial use here. And what shall I narrate? What will I narrate? Avataram, the manifestation or expression of what? Of the samvara, the conduct, of the atmaja, the self-born or born from the self, meaning the children of the sugatas, the bodhisattvas. So I shall narrate the manifestation of the conduct of the children of the sugatas briefly or succinctly, according to the scriptures, having with respect bowed to all the worshipful Buddhas along with their children and their Dharmakayas. Now, in a final step, I would like you, this is my teacher, coming back in my brain. I would like you now to make the sandhi back as it was before. Sugatan, there was no sandhi. Sasutan, there was no sandhi. Sadharmakayan, there was no sandhi. But now there was a sandhi. Let's see who can help me. The sandhi is between these two words.
Pranipatya.
Yes?
Pranipatya darato.
Exactly. And this was O, yeah? And then there was also sandhi between the O and the A.
Yeah.
Right? So look here.
You have to
O.
put O with an apostrophe.
See the O and the A. See here, there was also sandhi, right? Namostute nama astu. Well, that's a little different. Oops, something happened here. So here the A falls away and we replace it with an apostrophe, which just reminds us that there was an A there. Yeah. Pranipatyadarato kilan chavandyan. So now this one I don't expect you to know yet. This is a shcha, shcha. So we don't need to do this one. Kilan chavandyan, but this one now you have to help me. Sugata Atmaja Samvara Avataram. There's two sandhis.
Yes, the last R and the first R becomes one R.
Yes, so you have to give me the solution.
Sugatamaja.
Sugatatmaja, and then?
Samvaravataram.
Excellent. Beautiful. Samvaravataram kathayishyami. And there's only one more sandhi between these two words.
Yatagamam.
Exactly. Yatagamam samasat. Yeah, and once again, the verse now flows beautifully. Sugatan sasutan sadharmakayan pranipatyadarato khilanscha vandyan sugatatmaja samvaravataram kathayishyami yathagamam samasat. Yeah, excellent. I think you have understood the principle, maybe not the full application yet, but I'm sure you are beginning to understand what is meant by it. We had our lovely little texts. Were some of you able to take a look at them during your holidays? Maybe we can have a brief start to this one. Maybe the third one is a little easier than the fourth one. Maharajanagari. What case is that?
Locative.
Locative. Right? So, in the city of the great king, Acharya Grihe. What case?
Yeah, also locative.
In the house
House
of the
teacher.
Acharya, of the teacher. Bala. What case?
Of the first, the child.
The first, plural.
Children, not childs.
So the children or the pupils. And then Shastrani.
Accusative.
It's accusative. It is the object of patanti. Patanti is
Recite.
they recite or they study. Yeah, which is the word for reciting and studying is the same because that's how ancient Indians used to study, by reciting. So the students or the children are studying the scriptures in the home of the Acharya, in the city of the great king. Quite straightforward. Here, patanti, now that we have learned other tenses, we might mark it as present tense, something like this. If you want, just to for yourself to know this is the present tense. And then buddhya.
Oh, for this I have a question. Must it not be written Buddhaya? I'm not sure.
No, no, this is the instrumental of buddhi.
Ah, okay.
And now that you have learned sandhis today, see, now you will see the fruit of what you have learned today. You will now understand dharmopadeshena are two words. What are the two words?
Dharmopadesha.
Exactly. Yeah. So, see here, we have our chart again. The word is dharmopadeshena. So if we are extremely unsure, we would go to the chart and we would see, all right, I can see there are two words here, but what could they be the result of? And then we see there's or. Aha, dharma and upadeshena. That is the uncoding or the decoding of the sandhi. Yeah. So dharma and upadeshena. Now you have seen the fruit of what you have learned today. Upadesha means the secret instruction, not just secret, just it means the instruction. Often in Dzogchen, it begins to take on the meaning of a secret instruction, but in Sanskrit, it just means instruction. Dharmopadeshena cha jananti. And what case is it? That should be easy.
Instrumental.
Exactly. So how would you translate dharmopadeshena, Chimilamo? If upadesha means instruction, then dharma upadesha.
Instructions of the Dharma.
Exactly. And then as an instrumental.
With the Dharma instructions.
Exactly. With or through also.
Through, yeah.
Through or with.
Mm.
Buddhi means intelligence. And dharma upadesha is the instruction of the dharma. Both are in the instrumental. Jananti means they know. So first they are studying the scriptures, and then with intelligence and the instruction of the dharma, they know. What do they know? Dharmena punyam bhavati, adharmena cha apunyam bhavati. Oh, there's a mistake here. Bhavati. What do they know? Dharmena, what case is that? That should be quite easy.
Again, instrumental.
Again, instrumental. Punyam is
It's
nominative. Bhavati. And then adharmena, that's quite clear. It's the same word, just with an a at the beginning. Apunyam. Iti. So now here, I want to test you one more time. Here we have two words. Had I done the sandhi properly, what would be there here? When I say done it properly, I mean, had I actually filled the sandhi in instead of undoing the sandhi, what would be there? It wouldn't be bhavati iti, it would be
Bhavati iti.
exactly bhavati iti. Excellent. Maybe that's why there was no E before, but then it has to be a long E. So let me see if I can find that from somewhere else. Yes. And we replace it with a long E, bhavatiti. And would someone like to try to translate dharmena punyam bhavati, adharmena cha apunyam bhavatiti? Because that is the essence of what they realize. Through their own intelligence and through the instruction of the Dharma, they realize dharmena punyam bhavati, adharmena cha apunyam bhavati. Bhavati means is. Punyam means merit. Through the Dharma, there is merit. And through adharma, there is non-merit, apunyam. The absence of. Bhavati iti. And the iti marks that this is what they realize. So in English or in German, right, we would put this like in quotation marks. Iti. Sometimes we see the translators of Sanskrit, they actually do this when they render a text. They actually put it in quotation marks. That's what they realize.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because bhavati is or becomes, so I could also say with the Dharma, merit grows.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes. It's a very good point. I would also say the correct translation here is becomes and not is. Yes. Because it's a process, obviously. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, thank you for that. Very good observation. Great. So enough grammar for today. I think you have learned a lot. You have learned the present tense, or we repeated the present tense. You learned the past tense, the future tense. You learned the basics of vowel sandhi, at least the principle of vowel sandhi, so that now you can begin to observe in texts that you are reading, that could be a sandhi. Aha, right? And then we went into some translation also. So now I will do a little bit of what people are often interested in is more the meaning of Sanskrit words rather than the grammar, right? So that's like wanting only the dessert rather than having to cook it. That is often the case, which is understandable in modern times. And naturally, we can choose so many words to do that with. But a very important one for all of us, of course, is the word Tara. Tara meaning the goddess Tara. We could go into the many beautiful elaborations of her name by many commentators, masters, and so on. That's not what I want to do now. I could, but we don't have time for that. What I want to do is just the root, just the word. And there are beautiful connections etymologically to words that we know. So very directly, we say in Sanskrit grammar that it comes from the root tri, and tri is in the sense of tarani. Tarana means to bring across, to deliver, to convey across. So there's an obstacle, for example, a river or a lake or an ocean, and the act of tarana is to bring across that, to ferry across that, or to guide across something. That is the essential meaning of the root. Therefore, Tara is she who helps to bring across. It's literally what it means. And of course, we can then go into deeper senses of that. We can say to bring across suffering, tare, tut, tare, right? Probably, I always have the theory. I'm just rambling right now, but I have the theory that this mantra, Om Tare, Tut Tare, Ture, it goes back to Nagarjuna, because Nagarjuna was such a linguist. If you study Nagarjuna's works, they are so clever in their use of words and verbs and linguistics that this probably goes back to him, this alliteration of Om Tare, Tut Tare, because Tut is one of the shortest words that we use for suffering, anxiety, worry. Tut. It's one of the shortest words that we have in Sanskrit. And also, it also means to harm, dodati, to cause injury. But just tut, and then again tare. So, O Tara, Tut Tare, who is delivering across suffering. Yeah, so it's very clever. And then Ture, quickly, right? Tura. So Tara and Tura is an alliteration there. So I really have the theory this goes back to Nagarjuna because it's so clever. Om Tare Tut Tare Ture. And then there's the alliteration of it. But now to come back to what I wanted to tell you is just the root, tri. Yeah, to cross, to bring across, yeah, to deliver across something. But now, the fascinating point is that etymologically, linguistically, this is directly related to the word star. Stern in German. I believe, I don't know Italian, but I believe stella. Is stella still the Italian word for star, Marco?
Yeah, it's still, but I thought that Tara, it was more connected with traversare in Italian. It's to cross, to traverse,
You see,
traversare.
it could be traversare. I mean, there could be a connection there. But linguistically, Tara in Sanskrit also means star. And therefore, the words stella, steora, aster in Greek, aster, right? The means star. In Avestan, ancient Avestan, also star. These are actually cognates. And why? Because the stars are the instruments of guidance through which people found their way. That is the direct connection. That the North Star and Venus and the other stars, the heavenly bodies, right? The word star in Sanskrit is not necessarily only what we now mean is actually a star, right? So any heavenly body is a tara, right? So is actually the guidance that people used to find their way. Yeah, so there is a direct connection there between the goddess Tara and the word star. Now, linguists tell us, and I love this one, linguists tell us there could be a possibility that this is actually a borrowing in ancient Indo-European languages from a very old word, from Akkadian, Istar, which is the Akkadian name of Venus, but also the goddess Istar. There is an ancient goddess, Istar, in the Akkadian Sumerian world, not Sumerian, the Akkadian and then Babylonian world, Istar. This could be the truth. You see, sometimes we Sanskritists, we sometimes have a superiority complex where we think everything comes from us until we find some counter evidence. This could be a borrowing. Yeah, Istar. It's too obvious. And of course, every Sanskritist will know, no, the Babylonians had it from us. The Akkadians had it from us. I am not sure. I really think the linguists are right there. Because she's already a goddess. Istar is already the goddess. Yeah, so it makes sense. Yeah. Wonderful. So here, then let us conclude. I hope it was interesting for you. We will do sometimes a little bit more grammar, sometimes a little bit more meaning and going into the depth of it. And in this way, we will continue. So I will stop the recording